All right, so let me bring up Xiren, and like I mentioned before, we did a whole, I think it was like a 2-hour show with him a while back, and I'll put a link in the description, but man, he has a story that is just unbelievable when it comes to Lyme disease, and we've done quite a few shows, like I mentioned, about Lyme disease, and all of them seem to be very simplistic and very basic, and the story, it really makes me laugh because it's almost like 3 or 4 things, here's what you need to do to overcome your Lyme disease, and they're such basic things, and then when you listen to Xiren's show that we did with him a couple months ago, you start learning that, man, like there are levels to this kind of thing. And so let me bring him up really quick and turn his mic on. Xiren, glad to have you here, man.
Great to be back, Justin.
Yeah. You were telling me before the show that you kind of took today off because you are going to be working on cleansing today. Is that what you said?
I actually there was a small chance I was going to cancel today because, and we'll get into it, and you just mentioned it, I am the complex case on top of complex cases. So those of you that are not getting well doing the simple things, listen up because we'll go deep.
Yeah.
But I'm currently in a phase called Morgellons. So this is...
That's right.
These are, if you want to see the stuff of bizarre dreamscapes, look that stuff up online. But apparently this is yet another aspect of Lyme that I have to clear. So we're doing laser treatments for it, and it is kicking up a fight on the way out.
Wow.
So yesterday and most of the weekend, it was pretty tough, but it cleared up enough that I think I can put some words together and
yeah, you barely kind of talk.
Be able to talk about it today. So
now, do most people that have Lyme, is there a high percentage of it also have Morgellons, or is this kind of unique to you?
I would say, I don't know what the statistics are across the board on Morgellons related to Lyme. I think it's a difficult thing to assert because so few people know much about it. Even Dr. Klinghardt doesn't talk about it. Like, really? He's mentioned it a couple of times. He's aware of it. He's treating it with hit or miss success in his patients, but it's not clear how often he's seeing it. And then most people don't even know it exists. Most other doctors that work with Lyme don't even know about it.
Wow.
And it's a really, really bizarre topic. You have to use a lot of logic and discernment when you start researching into Morgellons, because it is such a strange aspect of it. But just to give you a sense, I kind of did this on the before today started. You're talking about the complex case. I don't know how well we'll maybe be able to see some of this. So
oh yeah, there we go.
These were. When we think about Lyme disease, these are all of the things that I personally have had to deal with and have tested positive for.
Okay, let me read some of those off, Xiren, for the people that are listening on iTunes. So from the heavy metal, it's cadmium, lead, mercury. What's that?
Gadolinium.
Okay, aluminum.
Yeah, I'll read. I'm happy to read these. Some of these are bizarre. Do. But like the whole spectrum of metals, I mean, that's like 5, but I tested positive, really high levels for a number of them, especially strontium. Like way off the chart for strontium. Like, where do you get that from?
Yeah.
And then when I went into this, I even call this category, I'll just call it other for now.
Okay.
But this idea of cryptopyloria, which I really want to get into today, cryptopyloria is something that pretty much everybody's dealing with a variation of it. I don't mean just Lyme people, I mean everybody.
Wow.
And then when we get into where it really kicks in is with the Lyme people, with the autism, with the adult autisms like the Parkinson's and such like that. But it's just a key thing that I overlooked, and it's so huge and it's so easy to fix. It was another one of those things like the retrovirus.
Yeah.
So I tested positive for SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, CFO, the fungal overgrowth, diabetic neuropathy, of course, tinnitus, parasites, and then when it comes to infections, there's no infection I have not found inside of my body yet. So,
oh my goodness.
And we've cleared almost all of these. That includes the Borrelia. So that's technically the only thing that there is for Lyme, right? It's just the Borrelia. That's all you have to worry about.
Yeah.
Not all of this other stuff.
Man.
So anyway, cleared the chronic and there's multiple forms of Borrelia where it's actually alive and moving as a spirochete, and then there's where it's in cyst form, so got rid of both of those. Bartonella, so Bart, as well as Babs, that's considered the holy trinity of like, you're going to have a hard time getting out of Lyme. Wow. If you have those three, I had all three, Epstein-Barr, Morgellons, as we talked about, and that is the correct pronunciation, like Morgellons.
Morgellons, okay.
Mycoplasma, and then zoster, HHV6, and like a billion forms of all the herpes guys. And then when it came to mold and fungus, this was the big piece that came up in the last year. And that seems to be at the bottom of everything. Mm-hmm. Like mold is like it's like the glue at the very bottom that kind of Morgellons, you can pile everything on top of. So we're now down, and we've already detected specifically Chaetomium, as well as Stachybotrys, and these are all the molds that, of course, tested in my childhood home, which my parents still occupy. So, we've cleaned that up, and then yeast candida. So, yeah, it's
Wow, man, that's a lot. So, I have to ask you, what testing did you do for this, and then how did you clean it up? But we'll get to all of that. But starting out, like, what tests did you do to find all this stuff in you?
Well, for each one of those, there's a barrage of tests that can be done that are both, lab tests that you can send away for. These are all, well, first of all, if you want to narrow me down, but I would say this is actually bringing up a quite key point. I don't remember if we got into this too much last time, but the idea that if you have any kind, I don't care how complicated your case is or how simple you think it is, because I thought mine was simple.
Wow, yeah.
But when I looked into it, when you really get to it, if you have to have a practitioner that has systems of testing that are outside of your traditional urine tests, blood tests, things that go off to the lab that come back 4 to 6 to 8 weeks later. Because this is a moving target, and we need to have more sensitivity than that. So I think it's paramount to find people that you trust, that have muscle testing systems, that have those kind of the equivalent software, like the Skio, the Zyto, the Avatar. The software is almost irrelevant to me. To my mind, whichever brand of those it is, I know there's a whole debate as to which ones people like as much as other ones. Right. I've used practitioners that have them all, but here's the key: if you have the talent as the operator, like if the operator's talented, they can make any of those things sing. They can get you well. They can figure out what's going on. So that's kind of the, since we're bringing it up, that's sort of the point I want to put across, is that you have to have that kind of guidance to be able to be sensitive enough. Because, for instance, I was doing all the lab tests, and because I have a web series, because of my Know How Things Work web series, I'm not casual with the truth. Which reminds me, there's 3 things I wanted to clean up from our last interview too, and I'll do that real quick in a minute. But that's the idea that I was doing all these expensive lab tests and kind of double downing on everything, and then it just got to be so cost prohibitive. But really, what was happening was I had finally found, and again, I've worked with a number of different people that have the muscle testing and have these different software testing systems. There is an absolute difference between people that are quality, that have talent at this, and people that suck at this. And it's just one of those things you just have to see. I was getting the lab tests back, and they were matching what I was sending, the Avatar and that were matching the lab tests.
Interesting.
And so after a while, I realized that we were at the edge of what I could actually test with a lot of things. Like if I was to wait for tests to come back, my healing would take another 2 or 3 years, because we need to keep moving. And there was a point at which I got very satisfied that I had found somebody that I was very happy with. In fact, I have a team. I have like 3 different people, 3 different practitioners in the area here, and I have them redundantly check the work of each other, not knowing what they're checking exactly. So it's it's a little double blindy in its own way. But again, I was seeing so much that was jiving with the lab the expensive, IGenics tests and all that stuff. And then eventually it was like those were showing negative. I was getting negatives when I was looking at the infections, but when we did electrodermal, I was still seeing absolutely they're there. Like now we're getting to the sensitivity level, and we're realizing that these expensive lab tests aren't even as sensitive as we need them to be. They're not as sensitive as the muscle testing and the Avatar. So I kind of, there's still times when I use it for different things, but overall, like, I don't wait for Cryptopyloria to be to come up in a porphyrin urine test if I want to test that, or I don't wait for the DNA connection test to come back. I trust the Avatar, and I trust this group of redundant muscle testing that that's doing it. So
what's interesting, Kenny, is or Xiren, is that it's fascinating. A while back after the last show, you sent me a really cool video of yourself doing the cover band, and you were doing U2's. I think it was Where the Streets Have No Name. And if you can share that with me via email, maybe during the break, I'll put that in the description so people can see that. But I was going to lead in with that because it looks like you have so much energy and you're doing really well. And I'm curious, like, how much of your day these days do you spend working on yourself in this way? Does it preoccupy a lot of your time now still?
Well, if you don't mind, before we go too far down, I am going to do those 3 quick corrections from the last show.
Yes.
And then maybe I'll have you re-ask a question.
Yeah,
if I
definitely.
don't remember. But I'm, I say this because I'm not casual with the truth, and I know that people are, the doctors they work with can be at the limits of what the doctors know. So if I'm giving you information that your doctor doesn't know about, I want to be very, very succinct. You know what I mean? Or very, intentional with what I'm saying, and make sure that I clean up anything. Fortunately, I only caught a couple of things from last time, but I did say that Judy Mikovits, the retrovirus lady, went to jail for 10 years, and that was a complete misspeak. She went to jail for 10 days, and I said years instead. That was one. The other one was kind of a simple one, but I just didn't want to. I had it that it could be taken the wrong way. When I was describing the protocol, like the actual dosages of the retroviral protocol I was using, I kept saying, this is my protocol. This is actually Dr. Klinghart's protocol, but those were my dosages. That's what I was meaning, was these are my dosages. It's
I see.
I made this protocol up. Mm-hmm. However, when we get into Cryptopyloria, that's something like if we go in there today, that is something where we've actually made some protocols up. And then the last thing was mostly, it was experiential. For somebody watching the show and not knowing me, it probably looked like I was just steamrolling over you, the host, when you would ask questions, and it was because we couldn't hear each other. I certainly couldn't hear you. So I've invested in a nice microphone and kind of have a different setup. So
no worries. Yeah, you know what? So thanks to you, Xiren. We're gonna have Judy on the show. So that's going to be really cool.
No kidding.
We reached out to her, and I think she booked. So we're booked a couple months in advance, but we reached out, and I think we're going to have her on. So that'll be really cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and I wrote down some of the people that you mentioned as well for Lyme. I think in that last show you referenced 2 or 3 other people, so we have them in our list as well. So good people.
That's awesome. Oh, yeah. I think one of them might have been Better Health guy, Scott Farsgren.
Yeah, he's going to be on as well. Yeah.
He's amazing. He's my hero. In fact, he's today when we get into some of this, he was really it was the surfacing of all of his work, where he actually did some. Here's a Scott Forsgren and Dr. Klinghart article where they co-wrote, and this is actually what I want to talk about today.
Oh wow!
Is Cryptopyloria. I think it's perhaps one of the most overlooked aspects of Lyme, even with Dr. Klinghart and Scott Forsgren.
Really?
I think they're even underestimating it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and in fact, I've been studying with Klinghart since 2011. Mm-hmm. And the only note I had on Cryptopyloria, and again, here's just so you can see the spelling as I say that, the only note I had on that, and the short would be KPU or HPU for hemopyloric. These are the two. Cryptopyloria was actually not really what it is. It's actually HPU, but we call it KPU because that was 1958 that they had the chemistry wrong. But that's a Scott Forsgren Klinghart article where they finally, in 2017, kind of brought the issue back up. And of all the lectures I've poured over and all that training I've done with Klinghart, the only note I had was that the number one thing you do with a new Lyme patient the number one thing you do is you balance their biology, and I wrote asterisk, address KPU if that's an issue. And that was all I knew about it. And that's, again, years and years of research. So somehow it sort of has ended up on the back burner a little bit. And maybe I'm reading it wrong, but again, this is not coming up in the Klinghardt lectures other than, by name. Here's KPU here and there. But really, I think the retrovirus and the other stuff that are going on were such a big new addition that maybe KPU got overlooked. So I want to add a little bit of amplification to that. But to answer your question real quick, going back, so how much of my time do I spend on this? This is unfortunately turned into, when I moved to the altitude here in Colorado, and for the people that don't know my story, I'll very briefly, so I was out in California for the last 10 years. I lived in Denver before that, and I grew up in Detroit before that. And it was during my 10 years in California, that everything got wonky, that my life got interrupted. So that was about 5.5 to 6 years ago. It was after a tour of Denver, of all places, where I woke up with a big bug bite, which appeared to be more of a spider bite than anything else, from sleeping in the basement in a gated community house, like not some campground, but a really beautiful place, and woke up with this bug bite, and 30 days later had arthritis from head to toe after years of a 6-day-a-week yoga practice. So kind of turned into an old man overnight, and that was really, I think, the first real major steps. But now we know that it's got more to do probably with my childhood home, got even more to do with some inheritance, because KPU, all this stuff that we're going to talk about today, this stuff is inherited. Like, you can actually just have this, this can come down to you with because mom or dad already had some issues. It can be trauma can set it off, and certainly any of the bugs are trying to make you a comfortable host, and that's the main mechanism of KPU.
Right.
So I grew up in this house that set that mold foundation. Then we had these, we lived next to the woods and probably had regular exposures to other things, some weakened genetics, and then you get this meat pie in 2013, a spider bites, and it's like just tips the whole thing over.
Right.
And so you would say most of my life I was relatively unsymptomatic, never been to a doctor, except that I had weird little things which I can now trace back to that, at childhood asthma. These are parasitic issues. These are KPU issues. These are copper and zinc deficiencies that are used to carry those oxygen molecules everywhere. So you've got quite a stew. And I lived, like you said, I lived a healthy life even during most of the treatment in California. I was pretty active. I had shut down some of my main businesses, but I was still taking music video clients. I was still touring with, so it's, technically I'm not in a cover band. A cover band would be a band you'd see in a bar, dress like they want, and then play other people, play a bunch of songs by different bands. A tribute band is recreating the show, so we're wearing, the Emporio Armani and the $400 sunglasses. And you know what I mean? So I'm dressing like Bono, and we're doing the U2 show. And I was able to maintain a lot of that. And I would say wholeheartedly that it was a lot of the foundational things I was doing were kind of keeping me like this. And then it was really hyperbarics that was allowing my body to heal faster than anything inside could break it down. So when I moved to Denver, all that changed. I didn't have access to this amazing hyperbarics. There's one facility in the whole state. It's a very different chamber system than what they had out there in California. They won't go nearly as deep. And it's, it's a mile-high city. So that oxygen differential, especially when you look back in the old literature, people knew if you had an infectious illness and you moved to altitude, that little 2-3% differential in oxygen could be all the thing needs to pretty much just take over. So since moving here, it's been a very different story. So for about the 15 to 18 months that I've been here now, I have really had to dig in, and it completely interrupted my life. So again, all that hyperbarics, everything went away. When I came here, I realized, I need to go deeper. I need to really, I realized that all the things I was doing were not getting at the real issue. They were sustaining, they were mineralizing, they were bringing me up, but they were not going to eradicate the infection. They were not going to really remove some of these other aspects and turn off the KPU. And
So
you know,
let's talk a little bit about the KPU and what it is, where it comes from, how it coincides with Lyme disease, and what the symptoms are of people that have it. So I'm curious if you can dive in on that a little bit.
I would love to. This, to me, I think this is at least as important as the last conversation we had. And in my mind, it's actually more important perhaps because it's so fundamental. Mm-hmm. I sent you the PDF, and I know we can't, I'll probably just have to hold this up from time to time as I show things.
No, you know what? I can bring that up. So let me do that.
Oh, there you go. That would be fantastic. And I was going to say, if you want to, you're welcome to share that with people. That's a personal drawing I've done going from a number. When I researched this, I did a really wide-angle lens on this and I wanted to even draw the image so that I could start holographically understanding how all these things are related. Because once I understood KPU, I realized how many things in my life were actually giving me clues along the way as to what was going on that I didn't realize at all. So if you go just all the way down to the bottom of that sheet, and we see, so that's Cryptopyloria. So again, this is just me being, these are my kind of cocktail napkin notes that I take for myself. And I've got, books and volumes worth of typed notes as well. But this is so I can picture it, because I think for me, it's very helpful to see it like this. So KPU or HPU, Cryptopyloria. So essentially it came from the 1950s. You can read all about it in Scott and Klinghart's beautiful article on his betterhealthguy.com site, and I'm sure you'll have a link and all that.
So there's this one, yeah.
But essentially what it is somewhere along the line, the number one theory about this is that basically parasites and microbes, in order to make you a more comfortable host, in order to move into our body and make us a host that's not gonna be very good at getting rid of them. It's gonna, they want to make an apartment that's very comfortable inside your body, and they want to do it in as few steps as possible. So this is Klinghart's theory, and I absolutely see how this makes sense. So if you understand this piece, you'll start to get the whole picture of it. So basically what happens is when these creatures move in, they say, what can we do so that you're a comfortable host in one move? And what they do is they mess with what's called the heme cycle.
Okay.
H-E-M-E, the heme cycle, as in hemoglobin. But way more than that. It's way more important than just your blood. But essentially what they do, there's 8 enzymes that, and exactly on that sheet there you can see, and I've just got the dot and the line there. I don't have the name of the enzymes on this particular sheet. Okay. But under the heme cycle, those little dot lines represent the 8 enzymes that get shut down one by one for the bugs to make you a comfortable host. And when they shut those down, what happens is basically you pee out, and that's why we have the neon P there off to the right.
Yeah.
You pee out all of your critical minerals, like all of your zinc, all of your B6, your P5P, your biotin, your magnesium, your omegas. It could be on and on. It could be, everything from taurine and molybdenum to chromium. It's everything. You pee out all that stuff. Okay, so that's one thing. Well, then what happens? So when these little bugs start shutting down, you could say, too, the severity of the case. So if you have Lyme, so here's the corollary with Lyme, by the way, just to give you a couple of facts. I should have brought all my statistics here, but it's an 80% correlation with Lyme.
Interesting. Okay.
If you think you've done a good job of peeling off the creatures and all the molds or whatever else you might have been exposed to, and you still are sluggish and you still don't, you're not healing well, and you're not, you're chemically sensitive and all these different things, still have the neurological signs and symptoms and the sleep issues, and you can't remember your dreams, all these things, then KPU is for you to look at. This is critical, and that's where I was. So I'm now on the other side of getting rid of 90% of all of these infections, and I still had a lot of the fatigue and a lot of these other things going on. And I realized that was the KPU. Now, again, it used to be like it was, and I'm sure it still is. It's not talked about that way, but it's the number one thing that Klinghart would start with. If he sees a patient, he used to look and see, let's balance their biology, Now he says, let's look at the retrovirus, but it's also let's look for KPU. The traditional test is looking in your urine for these things called porphyrins. But again, if you have some kind of electrodermal system, what we've done is we listed all 8 of those enzymes, and you can find that in the literature. I don't have that stuff in front of me. Those are big, long, crazy, fun chemical names. But those 8 enzymes you could test for, and you could see. And what we found is that my wife has 2 enzymes failing. And that might be thinner hair. That might be bad nails. That might be energetic issue. That could be, you know what I mean? A few different things. That could be a lot of different things.
Interesting.
For me, I have all 8 enzymes blocked. That's rather remarkable.
Oh my gosh. You have all 8 blocked still to this day?
Right now, at this very moment, I have all 8 blocked. So,
wow.
And, you know, other people, again, I've mentioned, you know, that there are a lot of family members. A lot of my time isn't just helping myself, but I'm actually running therapies and protocols for some very close people in my life that require my attention. Unfortunately, as public as I am about my own case, they are incredibly private. So I just have to kind of speak in generic terms. But you know, we're finding that other people that I know in my family are testing for like 5 or 6 of 8 being blocked. So,
oh my gosh, wow.
So it's a variation, and the more that they're blocked, the more that you have no methylation, no acetylation, meaning all of the body's mechanism to get rid of the creatures is gone. It's just shut off. I mean, this is a brilliant move. They come in, whether it's a parasite, microbe, bacteria, you know what I mean? They come in, they shut down, they say, hey, let's just turn these off. Let's start turning these off. And these are going to be all the, you know, the fire extinguisher for the fire. So now you have, you know, they turn the hose off, eventually they turn all of the ingredients off that actually make everything you need. And that's why I was showing that you pee it out. So they block these up with porphyrins. That's why you would do a test. You would do a urine test if you're with a traditional doctor to look for these porphyrins. They're not going to tell you how many of your enzymes are blocked. That's kind of a specialty thing. Huh. But when that happens, your blood kind of turns to oil. And this has been one of the things I've seen over and over. I've done some different ozone back in the day in California and stuff. And I remember the blood would just come out and it would be incredibly thick. And I'd get all those comments from the doctor on it.
How weird.
And then they put the ozone, it would get nice and light and go back in. But this was a sign that I had KPU. So if you block your blood up, if you make your blood all this like really oily and it can't get around, you've turned off all your body's defenses against detox of any kind. That's metals, that's bugs, that's all of it. So you've plugged up, the banana in the tailpipe effect is in. Right. You've got blood that's oil. Then you've got all of these. When I say that when I say that you pee out your zinc, you're not zinc deficient. You're zinc depleted. I mean, this is one of the things they're talking about. Is Klinghardt had something where he talked about they did bone biopsies of the jaw, which is supposed to have more zinc than the rest of the body, and they couldn't find a single zinc molecule. Really? And that's all of your. I mean, so zinc and copper have that fun balance, as you know, in the body. Right. And these things are required for everything. So if you have asthma, that can be just because you don't have any zinc or copper to transport any of the oxygen that you're breathing. Cold hands and feet. This is why I did that beautiful 21-day fast last year, and I still have diabetic neuropathy going on. This is why I still am getting over a lot of these things that look like diabetic symptoms, but it's because my blood is oil. It's because we're getting through this. Now, okay, so there's probably more to say about that, but basically, just to sum it up, if you have head symptoms, if you have any of these different anxieties and things going on, this is a very good indication, because in fact, how it was discovered, as I had started to talk about, was that in 1958, it was observed. So Abraham Hoffer, Hoffer, so this German doctor was studying patients that had schizophrenia, because this before the established psychiatric, world that we live in now. Right. They were actually looking for biological reasons why you were losing your, Yeah, exactly. And they found it. So in 1958, they found that there were all these porphyrins in the urine of these schizophrenic patients, and they found that was the commonality. And then that led to, the 8 enzymes are blocked up with those porphyrins by whatever's going on in the body, or by trauma. Trauma can can also cause this, and genetically it can be passed down. So
by trauma, do you mean like trauma from like a car crash or emotional trauma, do you think?
Yeah, usually they talk about it as in terms of like childhood traumas, like really big childhood traumas and things.
Oh, I see.
And then those are where the switches are switched on, and then that's what can be genetically passed down. And otherwise, it's up to whatever invades you to shut those off, so it can live inside you.
Okay.
So it can happen in a number of ways.
So real quick, Xiren, I'm curious about when they're measuring
and the fix is easy. That's
okay,
the
yeah.
good news. Sorry.
We'll get to that after the break, but I'm curious when we get back to if you can talk about like the porphyrins and how they're measuring. And you mentioned before that the typical tests don't show you which enzymes are shut off. So I want to talk about that after the break. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. So if you guys know anybody that has or whose body is dealing right now with Lyme disease or any kind of co-infection, autoimmune disease, this is some really interesting information that I think that they would really like to listen to, because Xiren's journey is quite profound, and I think it's worthy of listening to. I was just reading something recently that since the early 1960s, there's been over 60,000 chemicals introduced into our environment. 60,000 chemicals, and that's not even counting the stuff that Xiren and I are talking about today with all this other bacteria stuff. So it's crazy what we're up against. And so that's why I'm a big fan of bringing some of these tools into your home. You know, if I could, I would love to have like a hyperbaric oxygen. Wouldn't that be cool, Xiren? Wouldn't that be rad to have one of those in your home?
I think it's going to be something we do down the road.
That would be really cool.
And not a mild chamber, not one of those padded chambers, but like a real one, you know?
I know. Yeah, those padded ones. We did a whole show with a guy up in San Francisco all about hyperbaric oxygen, and that's the primary form of medicine he uses. And he was talking about the padded ones and how they're just not strong enough, are they?
They just can't go deep. Mm-hmm. And there's you know, depending on who you talk, when you get into the industry and you talk to the guys building the real chambers that can go like the 6 and 8 ATA and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of safety concerns about those chambers, and I can't tell how valid those concerns are, but at the very least, we know we're not getting the best form of oxygen in those, and we know we're not getting really deep enough to deal with an infectious layer. But it's not that there's no benefit to them. There's still benefit. I mean, it's breathing oxygen, and they go up to what, 1.3, 1.4.
Yeah, exactly.
Pressure, I think.
Yeah, it's better than nothing,
so,
right?
It's way better than nothing. I mean, even an oxygen breather. I just got one of those oxygen generators with the old hospital.
Yeah, the cannulas.
Oxygen thing, and I'll do that sometimes at night, because that's even better than nothing, especially when you're way up here.
Yeah, especially what elevation are you at? About 5,000?
5280.
5280.
That's the number for Denver. We're in downtown.
Goodness. Wow, that's amazing. And so now, being up that high, can you get access? I think you mentioned before that there's no hyperbaric oxygen places near you, right?
There is. It's not super close, but there's only one in the entire state, and it's fortunately we're close to a freeway entrance, so with that, it actually makes it just 30 minutes. Otherwise, it would be, a lot further away.
Goodness.
But that's the only independent hyperbaric clinic. Like, if you have Lyme disease, you can't go into a medical hyperbaric facility. They won't. There's only the 15 on-label conditions in the United States that will allow you to get a prescription to be treated in a medical hospital. It's probably right next door to you, like all the hospitals here next door to me in Denver.
Right.
And then if you have Lyme or anything that's not a diving related injury, because remember, it's the Navy that really brought this information forward. So it's all the on-label things are all really obscure stuff that almost no one's going to need it for. And then all the cancers and the Lymes and the things that it's, shown to be incredibly good at. Those things are, of course, not at all covered, and you have to go to an independent facility. I think I mentioned maybe that I'm filming I've filmed a hyperbaric oxygen therapy documentary because one didn't exist. I couldn't believe it. Nobody's made one. So I filmed one, and again, kind of waiting to rejoin life and have enough energy to finish editing that all together and put that on my channel. But
yeah, it's amazing. When do you think that? So that's all filmed and done, and so you just have to edit it and put it on there now, right?
Yeah, it's filmed and done. I've even teased it in a couple of my recent videos on my channel. But we have testimonials of Marv Griffin. What was he, like a 5-time Super Bowl guy? You know, and they told him at 70 or 75 years old that he's just, you know, going to join the world of statistics of those horrible concussions in a brain that doesn't work. And 3 months later, we've got pictures of his brain before and after, spectral scanning of his brain before and after.
Really?
And it's got giant black dead spots in the first initial shot. 3 months later, it's completely alive. There's nothing darkened out. It is completely back alive. I mean, autistic kids, there's even a child that was drowned in a swimming pool. Some of the stories were too dramatic. I can't put them in the video or people wouldn't believe it.
Wow.
So there were a couple that I just, for you know, I was like, I can't.
It's too much.
You know.
Yeah.
It's just like the people with Alzheimer's that get in the chamber and after, you know, one session, they start speaking.
That's unbelievable.
I saw this lady after her 4th session, and the 3 major concerns that they brought her there for were all handled, which was they couldn't leave her unattended with mirrors. They had to take the mirrors out of her house. Can't go to the bathroom on her own. Didn't speak. All those were resolved by the 4th chamber. I mean, that's extraordinarily fast, though. That's extraordinarily fast.
And
but anyway, there's only one chamber here.
Yeah, and how?
And that's the other thing that. The depths are dependent. So you get these shallower depths usually for for PTSD and these things that are strictly neurological. You actually get really good benefit from those really low depths, like 1.5, 1.7. And then when you get into the infectious illnesses and what I think of, you know, like the adult autisms and things like that require that big infectious layer to be addressed, then you want to go deeper and deeper. And in California, and I've also talked to the people working with some family members I have in Detroit going to hyperbarics, and they know about the deeper depths. They know about going to like 3 ATA and stuff like that to really saturate the oxygen into the body.
So before the break, we were talking about KPU, and one of my questions was for you about being
the enzymes.
Yeah, the 8 enzymes, knowing and getting a test and getting an actual verification that those specific enzymes are shut off. And you said that a lot of testing doesn't include that, and so I'm curious how we could know that.
Well, no testing includes the specific. Yeah, like when you go to a traditional Western tests, what you're going to look for. And by the way, I want to leave your audience with as many resources as I can. So again, restating the Forsgren and Klinghardt article, they actually, if you want to get tested with traditional means, they have a whole section on specifically testing and all that kind of stuff. So if you want traditional testing, and it'll work. It's actually a pretty simple test because it's just measuring the porphyrins in your urine, which are those are the chemistry that's getting that's blocking the enzymes, so you're going to see that in your urine and not all these other things. So it's a fairly reliable test. I think there's some hoops to jump through. And again, we're doing it with electrodermal, so we've gone down to saying, okay, let's look for those enzymes and see if we can, this is all the work of Reinhard Voll that we're talking about for people that are maybe not too familiar with some of the machines I've listed, like the Skio or the Zyto or the Avatar, some of these others, but I think what's really important is to have people see if they find themselves in this category. Because for me, it was just as soon as I started looking at like the symptom lists, and again, when you come into the domain of having a really junked up system with a lot of toxicity, and this is, in my mind, I'm just the example that got taken down early, but this is what's coming for all of us. I mean, when you start having the university professors saying there's a nearly 100% rate of Alzheimer's and dementia now, I mean, that should, motivate people to like be proactive, you would think.
Yeah,
when I ask people, even in the scientific realms, about the cancer statistics, they don't know that it's 50%. I mean, we're right about 50% of people are getting cancer, and that's national cancer statistics, not including any skin cancers. So, really? I mean, we're not living in. I mean, it was like 1 in 1,000 100 years ago. Is the guys from Truth About Cancer? I can't think of his name right now.
Ty Bollinger, yeah.
Ty Bollinger, who talks about that. It's like 1 in 1,000, 100 years ago. And now it's 50% or less. So, and I think those numbers are soft. And then when you see autisms, you've got that number in crazy. I mean, I don't know where it is exactly right now. The last I heard from Zach Bush was that it had dropped from like 1 in 46 children born with autism to like 1 in 38. This in 2018, it dropped that much. So you've got the kids coming in with all that toxicity, and that's jamming that up there. And then you've got the adults, having these neurological declines, and it's a guarantee pretty much. So you get this little sweet spot in the middle that I didn't even get. But that's just, you have to unload all those toxicities. So there is overlap. Like when you have, the metals in your body, you have the parasites unaddressed, you have all the different brand names of the bacteria, the Bartonella, the Borrelia, the Babesia, the Morgellons, all that kind of stuff. Some of the symptoms can look similar. So, we need to kind of know that. But here are a couple that are definitely, let me see if I can keep these, the ones that are really standoutish about KPU, about Cryptopyloria. I mean, they really say like nails, if your nails and your dream recall is poor, I mean, that's a really good indication. Pale skin, poor tanning. So there's a lot of skin issues come along with actually acute infections of Cryptopyloria, and then a lot of neurologic issues come along with more chronic conditions. So you've got that light and sound intolerance. This is a lot of stuff that I featured on the picture here. But so if you've got light and sound sensitivity, if you've got poor dream recall, if you've got big like environmental, food, chemical allergies, things like that, guess what? You probably got a heaping case of Cryptopyloria going on. So, but really it's, again, going back to the original research that Abraham Hoffer did, that was the idea, was he was seeing it in the really bad neurological cases where the personality had even split. That was Cryptopyloria across the board. Really? So all those people with those,
Xiren, with split personalities, it was 100% with this bacteria?
This was, well, it's not the bacteria, it's the condition. It's the shutdown of that enzyme pathway, creating that oily blood and basically shutting, kind of, I think of it like a perspective dimmer on your whole body. I mean, it just, so you can't detox, you can't think straight, you can't remember a single dream you've had, your hair and nails are bad, my skin was orange. That was a big clue that I never got. I kept thinking it was other stuff, and other doctors thought it was other stuff. But the skin conditions, again, all these kind of things, even thinning hair. So people don't know this, but hair loss is a symptom of stuff. And when you look at the products for hair loss out there, what do they contain? They contain all of the things that you want to take for Cryptopyloria. So once again, I think we've been dealing with this issue, and the research is not new. The research is 1958. Is 1958 they knew this stuff, and of course, you go to your therapist and they have pills for that stuff, to get rid of the mind, this kind of stuff. But we never address like this thing that we've known since 1958, which is this jam up of our enzyme system. And even more importantly, when you pee out, so it jams up your enzymes, and then it makes all of your critical minerals just get peed right out. You pee all of it out, right? And when you pee all of your minerals out, then when you look at your enzyme, right? So that's what this is right here. So these are the little keys that are supposed to be filled with your zinc and your, cadmium, or your zinc and some of your different essential minerals. And instead what's happening is it's attaching to aluminum and lead and cadmium. So now the toxic things are not only jamming you up, but it's this perpetual like inflammatory issue that goes on. Also, and by the way, Bob Miller's research was huge for me in this. So I'm sure you know about him, but Bob Miller and all of his Lyme genomics research was a major piece of this puzzle, because he has studied the heme pathway like crazy, like no one else. So again, as soon as I saw that come together, I was like, oh man, this is what we're talking about. It's that slow turning off, probably over time of, and then some people maybe come in the case of me, probably came in with a great deal of these already shut down when we look at family issues, you know, going back to grandparents and stuff like that, they were there.
Right.
And those things, again, the heme pathway getting shut down by this KPU effect is exactly what we're talking about here. So
how
this
long,
also means like...
So Xiren, how long have you been knowledgeable about this KPU and working on yourself in this way? How long has this been going on?
It's brand new. So I did about 45 hours of research just into KPU over the course of about a week and a half. So when you ask me, like, what do I do full time? I mean, I research full time. Wow. I'm getting myself and people I love out of some hot water. Yeah. And it's a lot of attention because this is my life journey. This is what I'm here to do is to help people, is to ease the suffering. And I've been given the most incredibly complicated case so that I could apparently have all those challenges to jump through it.
Wow.
But again, if you're treating and it's miserable, then again, KPU could be that effect, stopping that detox, shutting that detox down. Mm-hmm. So it's a vicious little cycle of stuff going on, and all, you know, doctor I worked with, none of the people I had met, none of them had heard of it. Not one of them had heard of it. So
yeah, so you said even before that the Better Health guy, Scott, I think his name is, and even Dr. Klinghardt, they are somewhat knowledgeable of this, but not as much as you think they should be or could be?
No, I think they're incredibly knowledgeable about it. I think they should be singing it from the rooftops. And it's one article from 2017, and it was the first time it was mentioned pretty much like in this kind of depth as to what it is, how to treat it, how to test for it, since a 2009 lecture that Klinghardt gave. And I've been listening to lectures. I've got lectures of him from 2011 up to 2018. And again, it almost never came up because I think, and I don't know, in his defense, there's so much to it, you know. Right. I think what he does is he gets the new research and he assumes people have maybe kind of aggregated everything that came before. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know, but I think it's way more important than for the, you know, have you ever heard of it? I mean, yeah, I've never heard of it. None of the doctors that I know that are Lyme specialists, not the Klinghardt trained doctor out here. You know, the big guy in town that everybody, whatever, you know, he didn't know. None of this stuff was tested for, and that's supposed to be the first step. That's supposed to be step one. In Klinghardt's old data, that was step one: was balance the biology, test and address KPU if it's present. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because you have to open that detox up.
Right. Hey, Xiren, we have a handful of questions. You want to take some questions from the chat room?
Sure, and we haven't gotten the treatment and all that stuff, which is easy, but yeah, let's do it. Okay, let's do a couple questions from the chat room. Maybe we'll go through those relatively quickly, and then we can get to the treatment part at the end. But a lot of people listening from all over the world. It's pretty cool. It's just, it never ceases to blow great. Hello, everybody, by the way. That's so great.
I know. It's like people we got Mandy in the UK, got people in Australia, people in all different states. Gypsy from Australia. Okay, so here's one from Penelope. She wants to know, just off the cuff, book recommendations. She wants to know more. So do you have any books that you could recommend?
For this particular, for KPU?
I would imagine so, but maybe just in general as well, that kind of got you started.
Oh, man. If you could see, my bookshelf spans the wall here. I mean,
turn the camera around.
Well, yeah. So she's asking. Maybe can we ask her for more clarification?
Yeah, maybe Penelope, if you're still watching. Yeah, if you're looking for more KPU, or if you're looking for just Lyme in general.
Because I'll try and address it on two fronts. So if she's asking for KPU, there's a lot. Basically, all you need is on, like, if you start with that article that Scott Forsgren and Klinghardt did, if you bring that into your doctor, that has pretty much everything you're going to need in it. Okay. Like, you can get as deep as we're going tonight with the whole holographic image and incorporating the Bob Miller genetic research into that heme cycle, because that's what we're talking about here. Okay. But there were really a lot of articles. So you'll find some of this stuff online. I don't know that there's books about this particular aspect of it, but as far as like Lyme in general, I think there's one book, the best book that anybody, and again, let's see if I can see it really quickly. I'll show it if I can. But it's the Dr. J. Davidson book. It's like $6 on Amazon Prime, and it is fantastic. It's better than pretty much any doctor any of us have been going to. And it's so succinct. It's such an easy read, and it's a gift. It's a real gift. And it came out just before a lot of the preaching on the retrovirus. Everything's going to miss something. There you go. The How to Fix Lyme Disease. That is an incredible book. I got to tell you, I've read so many books on Lyme disease, and when I read that, it was this is the guy, you got to keep in mind, Dr. J. Davidson. He ran the Parasite Summit. He ran the Lyme Summit, where he's interviewed. Not only has he fixed his wife, who was pregnant with their daughter, so there was Lyme getting, mom had Lyme, kid had Lyme, dad's the doctor, so the whole family had to get fixed. But he's also interviewed in a formal setting, just like yourself, hundreds and hundreds of the best doctors in the world on these topics. So he's got this really beautiful holographic, the way I like to, this kind of, he's taken the information and boiled it down to what really works, what people need, and a bit of a format that helps. Again, he's missing KPU. I don't believe that was addressed in there, and he's missing retrovirus, which was just about to kind of hit the mainstream. But there's so much other brilliant stuff in there. A lot of the things you've been talking about, the lights and the Joves and the detox chambers and things like that for home use. So he's just got tools in there that are incredible.
So Xiren, so the question is, dude, I don't know anyone who's putting all the pieces together. When are you going to write a book on this? I gotta have it. In your spare time.
Yeah, well, I really want to get back to my video series, and again, thank you for having me at least get interviewed on here, so I can just kind of spread a lot of the information while my own web series a little bit lags in my absence. But but that's really where I think most people, especially Lyme people, are going to really go, is not to the books, because they can't think or they can't read. A lot of the people I know, they can't even. There's just too much mental disturbance to even focus long enough. So I think what I'm doing, is I'm hoping that I'm addressing it with the videos in a way that is maybe the most useful right now for the world, the way that people get media and the way that Lyme people work and think. So I'm trying to make it as helpful as possible. Yeah.
We have a question here from the chat room, and Jeanette is from Germany. A lot of cool people. DC wants to know, and I think we covered this in the last show, has Xiren tried chlorine dioxide? And I'm pretty sure you have, right?
Are you talking about
MMS?
MMS?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually talk about that at great length in my early videos. I used that and watched heavy metals. I actually had an effect. I had an effect of it removing heavy metals. So I did a doctor's data before and after with like a 12-month difference, and using that as the primary agent, the way they were talking about for removing some of those metals. And it did a fairly good job. I think we've got better tools now than I knew certainly at the time. And I think even other tools are coming online that we're starting to understand now a little bit better than some of those. But there's still a place for those, I think. I think it's an easy thing to carry with you because it's just a couple of drops to activate it. So you can have a flu or a cold and a couple of drops of this stuff and kind of knock it out and get back to usual. So there's a lot of great stuff about it. But I think for the way I was using it, there's better. For the antimicrobial aspect, I think there's better. For the biofilm breaking, which these are all the things that kind of people sort of champion about MMS. I think I think most of the pieces there's better aspects for. And the metals like cilantro and these other protocols are incredible for getting rid of metals.
So let's get into now some of the things that you were talking about with regards to treatment of KPS and turning and reactivating those enzymes, getting those things back online. What kinds of stuff are you doing now for that?
So this is now where I kind of take the research that Klinghardt and all these other guys have brought forward, and Bob Miller, and I'm looking. I'm going to share what they have, and then I'm going to share where I'm kind of going with this with some of the practitioners and medical people that I'm working with. So first of all, the fix is actually pretty easy.
That's
and again,
good.
In that beautiful article, it's really just supplementing what we're deficient in. So it's a matter of supplementing. And again, there's just lists of all this stuff inside the article. But essentially, it's taking breakfasts, having a bunch of minerals go in, like, so you have zinc, vitamin B, biotin, and magnesium go in with breakfast. And then with dinner, you add in zinc, vitamin, so some of these same things, and then the omega-6 oils as well. So it's basically really hitting your breakfast and your dinner with supplements. And again, I'm a big fan of working with people that can muscle test you or that can test you for that are making sure that the mineral that I test for is, that this is the one that my body needs and not these other types of zinc, for instance. So a lot of it is putting in those minerals, and it takes about 2 to 3 months for this huge infusion of minerals to really take over and open up those blocked enzyme pathways again. Like, kind of, I think in some ways it really circumvents those pathways, and that's what we're going to see. I'm going to be monitoring it. I'm about 2.5, 3 weeks into the KPU protocol. Excuse me. So we've got about a 2 to 3 month window where the KPU protocol of adding back in those zincs and those magnesiums and all those different specific things that are missing before it really starts kind of helping your body and getting the detox going. But you do have a die-off. So when you start putting this stuff in, your immune system comes back to life. These are the fundamental ingredients that we don't have for an immune system, right, for hair and fingernails, for brain chemistry, for literally essential function in the body is gone. So when you start adding them back in, it can get kind of dramatic.
Right.
So it's one of those things, like, it's a really good idea to have somebody that's muscle testing so you can properly titrate your dosage up, for instance, and make sure you're sort of safely doing it. Because within a couple of weeks, you're probably going to hit a nausea phase as your body, just like I was showing. So it has chosen, in the absence of zinc and all these other beautiful things, to attach things like aluminum and lead and different toxic substances. So as soon as you start supplementing in, I hope these pictures are helping. They always help me. But as soon as you add the zinc in, you knock out those two, that like I drew it as aluminum and lead there. So you knock those out, and then it attaches with the correct enzyme. And by the way, now you are detoxing metals, so you kind of can feel a little junky as you're getting this stuff out, and as your immune system is sparking back to life and seeing threats that it didn't notice before. So it's a bit of a thing. It's one of those, it's an easy fix, but with a little bit of monitoring, right? Because then down the road, eventually, you're probably going to need copper as soon as zinc starts kind of propagating in the body, and they kind of kick the copper out. So you need to have a copper balance back in. So it's a bit of a dance, but overall, it's not too difficult. It's really just addressing that. So Klinghardt and, I think this is going to be interesting to see where Bob Miller lands on this, because they're doing a lot of work to get the heme cycle working again. So what I've done is I've kind of combined all that stuff from Bob Miller, all the stuff from Klinghardt, all the original Cryptopyloria research, and then, kind of seen what we can take from there. But Klinghardt has really talked about that it's a management process. So it's not necessarily a healing for that enzyme cycle, for that heme pathway. But it's more of giving the body so much of what it needs that even though you're peeing out tons and tons of it, you're getting enough in that your body can still function. You can still have those essential minerals through your body powering things. And what he says is that sometimes it does resolve on its own. So sometimes after the infection is completely removed, if you've properly gotten all the parasites, all the different things that can keep junking that out, and then also maybe done like the family constellation therapy stuff, like done things that actually correct some of these aspects, of our nature that have kind of the emotional aspects that might be contributing to this too. Then he says he sees the resolution of KPU. But again, this is one of those like hit or miss. He kind of sees it like that. So that's the knowledge that there is for now, is that it's mostly a management protocol. So you're mostly adding in the stuff that you're peeing out.
Right.
Maybe, we'll have me back in a few months and see, because I've got a standing appointment, 4-hour appointment every week with a brilliant doctor here. And we attack it from all kinds of different angles. And we try and be as scientific as we can, but we're really trying to activate the heme cycle using frequencies. I mean, there's everything else works with frequencies. Like, why wouldn't it? So in fact, I've actually, we built myself, and I've got about another week and a half left on it, but it's using the coil, in this case, using the element coil. Larry was the inventor of the amp coil. And he's left on his own and made a much less expensive version of, in fact, in some ways, maybe a better hardware version of the same product that amp coil has. So we're using, in this case, this was the tool for the job, it seemed. And we're using that with these really custom frequency sets to see if we can, in addition to using the supplementation, actually reactivate that heme cycle, like of its own volition, like really empty out the porphyrins that are blocking those enzymes, get that stuff working. And see if we can heal it.
Because that's ultimately what it's all about, right? You want to get to the point where you're not just flooding the body with so much nutrients that it can, even though it's still going to pee out, you really want to get to the root cause. And I think that, like, you're doing that emotional work, you're doing the frequency work. It seems like when you get down to levels like that, that's where a lot of stuff can start happening, don't you think?
Yeah, I think there's big keys in the frequency stuff. I mentioned this last time. I'm a huge fan of frequency specific microcurrent, and we're doing things with these.
What is that?
That I don't even. So it's called FSM, frequency specific microcurrent. So it's just another example of a frequency device, right? So we know about Rife machines, like in the case of like a BCX Ultra, maybe has plasma tubes, like an original Rife machine. So it's using a broadcast radius with, so it's piggybacking these frequencies that are programmed into the machine on top of that. Or then there's the Doug coil related machines, which again, we're using frequency generated from that, or we use, like in sense of this, now we're using actual electrons to carry the frequencies into the body, or like if we're using a laser, like cold laser, which is my favorite for getting rid of most of the infections. I think that's the tool of choice for about 80% or 90% of the infection. But again, putting those same Rife frequencies, and now you're using the biphoton of this device to deliver that frequency. So you're using frequency in every case. You know what I mean? We're using frequency in electron form. We're using it in biphoton form. In the cold laser, we're using it in frequency. So it's frequencies are key. And the way we were using this, we're going nuts. Like, we're going pretty hardcore because we're looking for solutions that we can, share. And give, if there's 1 billion people infected, like they're saying on the East Coast, to my mind, this is everybody. Everybody's got a version of this toxic buildup. We just live in that world that we live in, and we don't deworm ourselves, even though we deworm our pets, and we don't get rid of the metals, even though we know that they're, all of our stuff had lead in it and everything. But so I think frequency is the way to go. I think there's some pretty amazing things that are there to find, and that's what we're hoping to do.
And what do you think, Xiren, what's the name of that frequency device that you mentioned right after Amp Coil? It was a different company?
It's called the Element Coil. It's sentientlight.com. So Larry worked with Aaron Bigelow and the group over at Amp Coil, and, stuff happened. They moved on from each other, and now, so he was the hardware inventor of the Amp Coil hardware, and he's moved on his own, and it's called the Element, but it's virtually the same thing plus, the upgrades that he is putting into it as he moves forward, and a very, very different price range than what they're asking for. And of course, they're selling it with the diagnostic piece, what I think most of the charge that they're saying is the price differential from $6,000 for an amp coil to $1,500 for an element coil, or whatever it is, a couple grand for an element coil, is in their diagnostic software, which I have, I think the hardware is what I want. I want to build my own programs and that kind of thing. So, so this is perfect for me.
That's so fascinating. So you're working right now on this KPF, and how far into it, and then when are you going to get some results, do you think?
Well, the results have started. I'm nauseous.
There you go.
Yeah, I think the results started pretty quickly for me since I had done so much other work. I had literally rid the body of so much else. Again, I think we mentioned on the show last time that about 80% of people, I would imagine, with Lyme and Lyme-related illness would have gotten completely well, completely back at life if they had done the treatments I've done to this point. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And for me, it's still like, it's always we had to look deeper and see why is there still a tail on this? Why do we still have these issues going on? And some of the other things going on in my family circle have helped me understand it too. Like if those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't quite have, then there's this other inherited piece. There's this, these environmental pieces in the house that were no joke. Like mold is absolutely no joke. There's an incredible, speaking of Scott Forsgren and Better Health Guy, he just did an amazing interview. I don't remember the guy's, it's one of his last two most recent videos with a neurosurgeon from like Harvard and UCLA, like completely classically trained guy that's now seeing that basically when he looks at what's getting these Parkinson's, Alzheimer's patients better, it's when they start dealing with a lot of that neurotoxin and a lot of that mycotoxin coming from mold.
It's crazy. We did a show just recently with Dr. Lee Cowden, and he was talking about some of the research he's been doing, because I know last time on our show together, you and I touched on EMF a bit, and you talked about cell phones and wireless radiation and stuff. And Dr. Cowden was talking about some studies they've done where you have a Faraday cage, and then you have a bunch of routers and things like that, and you expose the mold spores to the wireless routers themselves, and then you put them in a Faraday cage, and it turns out that the mold spores produce 600 times more toxins, and they proliferate 600 times more when they're exposed to EMF radiation. You probably already know this, but so that makes me start thinking.
I believe it was Klinghart's.
I mean, all of this stuff with 5G and dirty electricity. We just had a guy come out to our house like you did when you lived in Huntington or in Miller. We had another guy come out to our house and do the same thing. And when you're looking at all this stuff, you're looking at mold spores living in the walls, because all construction is going to have mold in it. And then you have 5G on top of it, and it just becomes this chaotic soup. It's crazy.
Well, I have a super big man crush on Lee Cowden for sure. I actually go see his doctor is one of the people I use out here for muscle testing.
Cool.
The guy that Lee uses to treat Lee
wow.
is out here.
Yeah.
And the research you're talking about, I think maybe some of the most important research, and I'm pretty sure it was Klinghart and friends that did that specific test with the Faraday cage and the mold. And what you're bringing up, I think, is the keys to the kingdom. I think this is one of the most critical aspects. I'm sure your audience is very well aware of the 5G nightmare that's coming down, in our direction. They've got it in LA already. It's coming to Denver next year. It's, there's nothing seemingly able to stop it. Like no litigation against it, no scientific inquiries against it. It's like steamrolling everything in its path to come to us with this cheap hardware and these, what is it, like a quarter-mile high sine wave that's a millimeter apart? Like this thing is just insane, right? I have to wear a silver shirt to go outside in downtown Denver. And what we're talking about here is why all of a sudden are we dying of all these neurological illnesses and these molds? We've lived with mold forever and ever and ever. Why is it a problem now? We've lived with these bacteria. I mean, Lyme is 2 billion years old now, right? We know that if you get Lyme like me in the Midwest or the East Coast, that you have a pretty high chance that it's this genetically modified version, which, whatever, I don't even care about that. Like, this is still a bacteria that's been around for 2 billion years. So why is everything way worse? And it's because it's all of it, and then it's the frequencies that we live inside of. The frequencies are doing exactly what you said. They're making the bugs go crazy. So where it was just, we had all this stuff forever and ever, and it was whatever issue it was for certain people, and for most of us, it was not anything you couldn't live with. All of a sudden now we have these incredible autism rates, these incredible cancer rates, women dying in their 40s and 50s of neurological illnesses. Like in the last few months, I've said, goodbye to friends of friends and such.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the big piece. This is the elephant in the room, is the frequency. I mean, again, just like we were saying, frequencies can be the solution, and they are also the wrong ones. The non-biologically friendly ones are the ones likely making everything the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Xiren, on all this stuff. I think 5G is going to be, it's going to open up just a can of worms that people are not prepared for. Let's take a couple quick questions. Let's do kind of rapid fire from the chat room, and if you can go kind of quick on these, that would be awesome. So have you, A. Bell wants to know, have you tried accelerated silver? That's kind of like it's a silver. We've had the lady on our show that's been infused with scalar energy. And so it's a particular type of silver, and they're curious if you've ever tried it or know about that.
I've only used traditional ionic colloidal silver. I have a couple of makers, so I have, a couple of making devices at home. So I have not tried like the AG silvers and some of those activated ones. Okay,
cool. And then Farsam wants to know, have you looked into...
Hey, Farsam. I know that name.
Oh, cool. The Quicksilver Scientific Company. Do you know about them and the work that they do for heavy metals?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm actually using their products right now. The liposomal vitamin C and the liposomal glutathione from Quicksilver, plus their R-lipoic acid. And by the way, why we need our R-lipoic acid is because of Cryptopyloria shutting everything down. So that's why it tests so well for everybody. But yeah, love those Quicksilver products.
Ivy Raz says, bless you, Xiren. I've got friends with horrible Lyme, sharing your info with them. That's cool. And then Ria says, Orgonite is great to cleanse with. Have you looked into that?
I've got that kind of on my radar, but I have not found the great sources of information about it that I wanted to find yet. So if somebody wants to send me anything, that would be fantastic. They can go to if there's anything you want to send me on that silver that you like, if there's anything you want to send me on these other products, I would love to take a look at them, especially if you have any kind of deep knowledge or personal experience with them. Share it. And that's go to knowhowthingswork.com. That's KNOW, knowhowthingswork.com. And at the bottom, there's a link for contact, and that just goes right to my email. So
okay, cool. Farsam wants to know, what's your opinion of Lyme-N? Do you know what that is? Lyme-N.
This is a setup right here is what this is.
Is it? What is that?
Well, here's what I would say about any product out there. Anybody with Lyme that thinks there's a single product that they can take that will eliminate Lyme.
It's not happening.
How is that possible? How is that possible? How is one product going to get rid of all the metals, going to get rid of all the molds, going to get rid of all the mycotoxins, going to balance out the 8 enzymes that are jacked up, going to
is that what it is?
Ion-gated
is Lyme-N? That's like a singular product. Is that what that is?
Lyme-N is kind of a quasi-underground product developed by a bunch of NASA scientists who are expecting to get $1 billion check from the federal government for having the cure for Lyme.
Oh, okay.
And I've used it, and it did not work at all for me. It did not work for the other 2 or 3 people that I used it with. So, but again, I don't know. Maybe it's got a place somewhere, but just not with a complex case. But it's the same thing with any of these products. I've mentioned Amcoil, like those guys are saying buy our coil and it'll fix you. And, anyone else has got if somebody's got a single product saying that will turn you around or fix you,
Good luck.
I wouldn't count on it. Yeah, I wouldn't count on a single product because there's just too much, the things you need to get rid of the metals are going to be different than the things you need to get rid of the parasites. Mm-hmm. And the things you got to get rid of the bacteria with are not going to be the same things you get rid of the viruses with. And they're not going to, anyway, so... it's like when they give you go in for an earache and they give you antibiotics, and you're like, well, you just gave me antibacterials for a viral infection. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like how the mainstream thinks of antibiotics. We just use it for everything.
Right. Ria wants to know in the chat room, do you take apple cider vinegar and or baking soda on a regular basis?
I love apple cider vinegar. I use it a lot externally. I have a very Irish family, which means there's a lot of mole maintenance.
Yeah.
Mole and skin. And, I didn't have my autophagy mechanism working. So that's what a lot of the liver spots and these different things can be too, is those can just be when the autophagy mechanism is not working very efficiently. And then that skin gets dead and then the sun burns it and then you get these old spots. So I use apple cider vinegar for that. I use it in my bathtubs. I use it for lots and lots of stuff. Love it. And what was the other one she asked about?
Baking soda.
Yes, I test very well for that. I take the Red Mill. I take a 1/4 teaspoon in the morning and night.
Okay. That's cool. And we had an email question here, and it was about, are you familiar with like Dr. Ray Peat's work and PUFAs and omega-3 and fish oil and stuff like that, and how that relates to like what they call lipofuscin and yellow fat disease and all that kind of stuff. Are you familiar with any of that?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not. I love hearing about new stuff.
Yeah, Dr. Ray P is an interesting guy, and he's not been on our show yet, but there's a lot of talk going around these days about what they call lipofuscin, and that's yellow fat disease, and that's causing all kinds of health concerns, and it's this idea that we're taking like a pharmacological overdose of fish oil and specifically omega-3s, and when you mentioned the liver spots on your skin, a lot of people say that's lipofuscin, what they call PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, and I'm just curious if that's come into your Lyme research and stuff like that, because Ray Peat is a pretty controversial guy, so it's his kind of cutting edge stuff.
Right. Yeah, it was Bob Miller that was the one who turned me on to the spots, and that was what he was noticing in the Lyme genomic research, because they were studying autophagy as well. I have definitely heard of the research and not of the researcher that you mentioned, that the idea that there's an overdose and potentially that these omegas and such are not ideal for us. I think it's exactly like the last question, frankly. To me, everything we're mentioning is a tool. Everything that we're mentioning is like a tool, whether that's, the Rife machines, the frequency specific, the KPU protocol, all these different things. But even the KPU protocol, so when I put it together, so that the practitioners out here could kind of find things a little easier, there still might be, like, let's say you need zinc. There's like at least 3 or 4 major different forms of zinc here. So I've listed a bunch of different products, and then each product, I would never ever take a product unless I tested it first for me. And I've found that the most miraculous things that people are out there championing are terrible for me. Some of them, not all of them, but right. And then some of the things that are supposed to be, all this research like omega oils are going to kill you. And then skate liver oil tests fantastically well for me. And it's a big part of the KPU protocol. So
interesting. Okay.
It's just, it's a weird, it's one of those things. And because nothing's forever either, right? If you're on vitamins and like huge amounts of this stuff, you're never going to get well. That stuff is going to be used to get you well. And if you don't reduce it, then you're going to be stuck. Like you're not going to actually progress beyond it. This is a big piece that Klinghardt and all of his cabal of doctors have noticed, is that that's exactly the case. So I'm always a hand-pick guy. Make sure that if somebody's around, if you don't have that, then you got to just use your instincts. You got to use the best wisdom and logic you have. So I fully appreciate that. But my point is, don't give up on like if you've had bad experiences with people that have those abilities or have those software, don't let that stop you from finding other people that are really talented with those tools, because that's what we all need.
Now, when you test for yourself, do you have home testing or do you do your own kinesiology?
I don't trust my tests. I'm practicing. I practice like the lean test and some of these different things, and I'm not satisfied with the consistency of the answers I get. And not to mention all the guys that are good at it tell you got to just do it like 50 times a day, and then after a year or two you'll get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like who's gonna have that kind of time? Yeah. Well,
it's a skill I'm developing for down the road, but I'm not consistent enough where I'd like it for myself yet. So I use these different people whenever I go into them, and I check the products I have, and I check the protocols and see where adjustments and things need to be done and made. So
okay, cool. So what's next, Xiren, for your work? I know you got that documentary that you still have to pump out, but what else you got going on that you want to tell people about?
Well, it's really, I think that I'm coming back to the world. You were asking, it's a perfect timing. Your timing was so perfect asking what I'm doing these days, how much of my time, because I'm just spending so much time pouring into the research, and there are lives on the line in my, in my originating circle here. So I'm not casual about it, and of course my own included. But, I think I'm rejoining the world. Like but all indications are that the things that I've missed are not, are now getting handled. So I'm on the right track, and we'll see. I'm in the Morgellons thing, and the Morgellons is like, whoa, you don't know. I mean, there's the books out there on it and the experts on it. They're still not great answers. And so we're trying something else. We're actually trying to laser for it using frequencies from like the Spooky 2 Rife and some of these different things that are also, again, hand tested. We're running them through the avatar. We're letting it choose what we like, narrow down these lists of hundreds and hundreds of frequencies to see what happens. But point is, I think I'm coming back. I think in a lot of ways I'm coming out of it. I've started contacting people I haven't talked to in a while, just friends that I've kind of been off the radar. And all the Lyme people and people with health issues know what I'm talking about. You just don't have the energy to manage certain relationships and friendships. So those are coming back online. I'm even building a Denver tribute to you two, as well as the California tribute. So that I don't have to travel even when I play stuff around the town I live in now.
Oh, that's so
cool. I think I'm coming back to the world, and my web series I've been getting in my meditations in the morning these incredible like scripts that I want to talk about that no one's talking about. Really? And a lot of it we've touched on in pieces here, the ideas of that these creatures, that your consciousness is, people really think that that's their personality, you know what I mean? And
right,
you might never have known your own personality your whole life. You might have been born like I was with parasites and all this other stuff. And when you peel that off, as I've been peeling it off, for instance, just innate joy has come out. It's like this deep joy that's like, oh, this is the natural state of a human.
Wow.
And I haven't had that. So those depressions and those other things in my life. So now I'm coming back out. I just have this incredible slew of shows that I want to do. And then, of course, all the ongoing research we're doing here eventually will make its way into episodes as well.
Dang, that's so cool, man.
And then I'm thinking about doing that coaching thing. You kind of mentioned it last time, too. Do I help coach people? And so I'm practicing. I have so many friends that are sick. I hate to laugh, but yeah. I'm getting incredible practice, like seeing all the things people need to do to clean their homes up and all the, convincing their family that the frequency warfare is real.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they can turn the Wi-Fi off at bedtime or all the time if they're smart.
Yeah.
But so yeah, there's a little bit of a question mark as to what exactly is next and when the timeline will be. But there are a lot of irons in the fire waiting for energy, waiting for me to kind of
that's cool.
Have a little more attention.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So let's do this again. Maybe in a few months, we can kind of get an update on what you have going on. And for those that are watching in the chat room, or if you're just watching, or if you're listening on iTunes in the future, I think what I'll do is Xiren a while back sent me the coolest video of him doing Bono, and man, it is so. You guys are just so perfect in that video. And I think it was Where the Streets Have No Name, right? Was that the song?
Yeah, it's a little bit of I think that was the main song in that video. It was like our promo video. It was like a 30-second promo video.
Yeah, man, it was so cool. So I'll share that underneath in the description so people can check it out. It's super, super cool. Xiren, thank you, man, so much for being on the show again, and thanks for sharing your wisdom and all this new research you're doing. Let's do it again in a few months. I'll send you a link, and we can do another show again. That'd be great.
I'd love to. And, there's one really important thing I'd like to say at the end here, which is, not only thanks to you, but a couple of nights ago when I was having, going through some of these treatments myself, I just realized I was just so profoundly grateful for the body of research that exists on all of these health issues that we're all dealing with. The answers are there. Like, people have looked them up. People have worked them out. People have understood them. People have risked their lives in some cases for this, as we unfortunately know. But more than that, like, people have literally spent their lives putting these ideas together. Whether it's this old, this 1950s Crypto pylori reason. Like, I'm just so grateful for the amount of research that's been done out there I don't know how much new research we actually need. Like, there's so much that just needs to be put together. Like, if it could be assembled, do you know what I mean? It's just out there already. Yeah. So just to make sure, very, very, very clear, the research I'm doing, like, I'm mostly a generalist. Like, I'm putting together the ideas that other people in labs have done all the hard work on, and all I had to do is read their papers, read and kind of see how they all fit together. But all that research was done, and I'm very, very grateful. Very grateful for it.
I know it's an amazing time to be alive as well, because you have access to Google, to the internet. I mean, it's, you know, this drawing that you sent to me that I put on today's show, it's like there's no way for us to do this kind of stuff in 1985. We just couldn't do it. And so just really grateful for the time that we live in as well. And so, yeah, and thanks for sharing your story. It's just really cool, and I'm glad to share it, because I think it's so important. I think that a lot of people with Lyme disease have different levels of infection, and when they can look at someone like you who has something that's way beyond what normal people with Lyme have, there are those people out there that are looking for answers, and they just don't get the results with a simple 5-step protocol they read in a book. They need to go deeper, and I think that's where you come in, and that's where a lot of other people come in. So I'm really happy to share your work, and super pumped that you've been on the show today, man.
I love being on your show, and I bought this pretty microphone for it. So yeah, let's do some more of that for sure.
Definitely.
Like
man.
I said, you're also getting me when I don't have the energy to put my own information and videos together. So it's just great to not completely disappear and let people have some up-to-the-minute stuff.
Awesome,
So
man.
thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you're so welcome, and I'll be in touch, man, and stay strong, stay healthy, and I'll send you the link to this as soon as it's available.
And thank you, everybody out there with your great questions. Those are
Awesome.
great questions.
Awesome. All right, Xiren, thanks so much, man, and I'll talk to you soon.